Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Fergal. I'm the facilitator for Career Conversations at workNet DuPage. I want to welcome everyone today. I'm especially happy to welcome our speaker today, Abby Kohut. She is a recruiter, corporate recruiter. She's also known as Absolutely Abby. I'll go into more detail in a little bit. And she's going to be talking about success for the season search, the benefit of being overqualified. Boy, in my 27 years of working in this industry and this organization, I've heard this all the time. So Abby, I'm looking forward to this presentation. I'm just going to go into a little bit of background here. Also on the call, well, I myself am manager, job seeker, veteran services. Javon Morris is a workshop facilitator, as well as Jennifer Legeman is a workshop facilitator. So the three of us are with workNet DuPage. We're also on the call, all three of us.
Good morning.
So if you go to worknetdupage.org and you haven't heard about us before, or maybe you're curious about what we do have a workshop called From Layoff to Launch. We talk about how you may be able to qualify for different funding for certification training up to $10,000 to upgrade your training. We are funded through Congress by the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, or WIOA, as it's commonly thrown around in the community. So we look at different certifications, everything from Agile Scrum, PMP, healthcare, truck driving, CNC machining. We have a lot of occupations that we fund so that you can become marketable. And there's no need to pay it back. The only thing we ask is that you let us know when you have a job so we can report to Congress that the program works. This is at Tuesdays at 9:30. Okay. We will have the chat room as well as Q&A open. Please keep your comments according to the topics that we have today that Abby will talk about. Abby will address all the questions at the end of her presentation. Please mute your microphones. And I'm going to go to introducing Abby here. So I've heard about Abby before. Other job clubs mentioned when she was in town. You know, she's known in the job search world as Absolutely Abby, because she tells the absolute truth about the job search process, which is what we like to hear. In the past 26 years, she has helped over 10,000 people get hired, because she's held a variety of healthcare occupation, corporate recruiting occupations in a variety of industries. She was also selected at absolutelyabby.com, was selected as one of the top 100 websites for your career by Forbes. And she teaches you about the job search process that other recruiters won't tell you. Her website, absolutelyabby.com, was also mentioned on CNBC as one of the top 3 websites for career changers. And they also published an article naming Abby as one of the top career coach and recruiters. She is also one of the top 100 influential people online, according to Fast Company, one of my favorite mags, and is also known as Ask Abby on LinkedIn. So since 2012, she's had a mission to train or help over 1 million job seekers. And she drove around in the US in an RV pre-COVID. And I always wanted to have her, but whenever she was in town, I always had a speaker for our job club. And this is, I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on today, Abby.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take myself off of here and let you go ahead. All righty. And
Appreciate it, and I'm really excited. This is my favorite presentation to do in one of my favorite cities. So I'm talking to you all from New Jersey at this point, Central Jersey, and
I'm sorry, I think I screwed around with everything.
is everything okay?
I was just,
Oh, no, my slides went away. That's what happened.
yeah,
Okay,
I was
I'll put
trying to
it
get
back.
out of my stuff. Go ahead.
That's okay. I'll put them back. Hang on a second. I think this is it right here. There we go. We're back. No worries.
Good.
So I was saying that I'm talking to you all from New Jersey today. In a couple of weeks, because that's where I'm going to be living soon. So I'm been in New Jersey or the New York metro area my whole life, and it's time for me to be in warm weather. So packing up the house and going. So next time I talk to you all, I'll probably be in Florida. But anyway, for today, our topic is success for the season search, the benefit of being overqualified. So normally when I have an audience live, I ask how many of you have ever been told that you're overqualified. So why don't you, if you have been told that you're overqualified, can you put in the chat, just say yes, if you've been told that you're overqualified, or raise your hand, something like that, just so I could see how many of you have been told that you're overqualified. A bunch of you. Whoop, a lot of you. Okay. All right, get ready for the next question. Here's the next question. It's a little trickier. How many of you have been sitting in an interview and you knew you were overqualified? No one said anything about it, but you knew it anyway. How many of you have had that happen? Let's see if we got a few there. Yep, a bunch there. So it's because of this. So usually it's about a 50-50 split on those questions. That's why we're having this presentation today, because this is so, like, this is prevalent. This is actually happening out there. And as Jim just said, I am a corporate recruiter currently. I'm in HR right now doing recruiting, at least that, and then some other things that I'm going to tell you about at the end of this presentation that could actually benefit some of you. But I am actually a recruiter. And the reason that's important is because I'm not just talking in theory, I'm talking in like what actually happens. So I have some stories today for you about things that actually happened in my time as a corporate recruiter in the past couple of years. So I got a lot to say. All right. Anyway, Jim gave you my formal bio. My bio from my heart is basically like this. I've been a corporate recruiter for 26 years, and the problem with being a corporate recruiter is that if you don't get the job, you call me up and you say, how come I didn't get the job? Like, it was going so well, what happened? The problem is that the legal department tells me not to tell you specifically what happened. And therefore, I've had to hold these reasons in at this very moment. If you go to that website, it's going to be down, but that's okay, because I'm going to tell you about some other stuff that's even more important than my website today. But becoming Absolutely Abby was wonderful, and it started in 2000 to help 1 million job seekers, because I felt like I had rejected 1 million people in my career. So I thought, let me go out and find 1 million RV, and that's when I started driving my tour. And I did it over 4.5 years. I actually quit my job to do it. And I came back after doing that, and then I got back into my recruiting job, and here we are today. So I did this tour from about 2012 to 2017, and since 2017, I've been back doing recruiting full-time, pretty much. So that is what's going on. So I know a lot of times people really want my slides, and for this presentation, I'm happy to give them to you, and I want you to get them yourself. And the way you're going to get them is to send an email to slides@absolutelyabby.com. So this is not a website. Sometimes people get confused. This is an email. So you send an email to slides@absolutelyabby.com, and the slides will automatically bounce back to you. And then you will have them. You can have them today, you can have them tomorrow, you can have them next week, next month, next year. They'll be there forever, essentially. So go get them when you're ready for them. Okay, so this first slide is probably the most important thing I am going to say the entire time. And this is about the fact that if you had your resume and you wanted to get it evaluated and you showed it to 10 people at workNet, there is a really good chance you would have 11 opinions about that resume. And that is because there is no president of resumes. There is no king of resumes. There is no queen of resumes. There is no governor of resumes. There is no vice president of resumes. There's no policeman of resumes. What that means is, let's say your resume is 5 pages long. No one's going to come and arrest you because your resume is 5 pages long. So what this means is that there is no authority on resumes in America. Now, there might be one overseas, but I don't think so. There's nobody in America that governs resumes. So what that means is that leaves us all, myself included, to our own devices. So what that means is that we all can only speak in opinions about resumes. So when someone tells you that your resume needs to be 2 pages long, they're talking in opinions. They're not talking in facts. When they say your resume can't be 3 pages long, can't be 5 pages long, they're talking in opinions. And so I need you all to become the captain of your career. What that means is I want you to figure out what is best for you and do that. So this goes with resumes, interviews, thank you letters, like millions of things. There are very few facts associated with the job search process. And that's what makes it so difficult for you job seekers, because if there was only one way to do it, we would tell you this is the one way to do it. Like if you think about mathematics in college or high school, right? When you take, let's say, algebra, everybody is taught algebra the same way. Essentially, might be off by 5%, but every single school teaches algebra the same exact way. The reason everybody can't teach you how to find a job in the same exact way is there is no exact way. So today I'm going to be speaking in opinions, primarily. If I have a fact, I will say this is a fact. And the reason, but I do want you to believe that I'm speaking and I know what I'm talking about. So what I want to do is talk about this word overqualified. And let me ask you all, this is a good one for you. If someone says that you're overqualified,
Excuse me, Abby, you're breaking up and frozen.
okay, how about now? Is it better?
Yes,
Okay.
but it happens
can't-
occasionally. Okay, I know.
Yeah, I can't change it. This is where I live, and the reception is terrible here. That's why I'm moving to Florida, in addition to the weather.
Okay, good. Okay, just wanted to let you know.
So just tell me if I freeze and I'll go back and say it again, okay? So what I'm asking is if everybody could put in the chat, if they could tell me, what do you all think if someone tells you that you're overqualified? What do you think people mean when they say the word overqualified? What is the definition of overqualified? And if somebody could read me what's in the chat, that would be fantastic.
Too old, too much money, too many years experience,
Mhm.
exceed the role, the skills exceed the role, you'll get bored, age, money, too expensive, salary,
You guys
washed
got
up,
it. You guys got it.
PhD. Okay,
All right, that's perfect. Thank you. I'm going to be bugging you a lot, Jim. Okay.
okay, no problem.
Okay. All right. So the first thing I have here is too much experience. So the job I'm trying to fill, I want to find somebody with 5 years of experience, and you have 30 years of experience. Someone could say you're overqualified for that reason. So it could be your title. So I'm trying to fill a manager role, and you've been a vice president. That's another reason someone could call you overqualified. So also education. So I'm trying to fill a job with a bachelor's degree person, and you have a PhD. And the last one is
You froze on higher salary requirements.
$100,000. Any of these reasons, somebody could say to you, you know, you're overqualified. Okay. So the question is, why wouldn't an employer want to hire a candidate who's more highly skilled than the job requires? Well, it's actually fear. And let me tell you what they're afraid of. So they're afraid that you will have a been there and done that attitude. So like you used to do this function 10 years ago and you don't really want to do it anymore. So they're afraid of that. They're also afraid that you might get a call from a recruiter and they might say, remember that VP job, that $200,000 VP job that you and I were talking about? Well, now I have it. It's on my desk. Would you like to come in for the interview? They're afraid that you're going to go on that interview sooner rather than later. So like in the first 3 months, you might go on that interview. They're worried about that. They're worried that your colleagues and managers are going to be threatened because you're so good at what you do. They're worried that you might want to be promoted quickly. And the last thing is that they're really worried that you're going to say, I'll take that manager level job, even though I've been a vice president, but you won't stop looking. So you keep your resume on the job boards, you keep your open to work on LinkedIn, you keep your search agents active, and you're really waiting for that vice president job, even though you took the job. So what they're mostly worried about with overqualified people is that you're not going to stay very long for one of these reasons or another 10 reasons. That's what they're worried about. And this I can tell you is more of a fact than my opinion because I've had people say these things to me. So they're worried about you leaving. That is it. That's what the problem is. So today we're going to be talking about this word overqualified. It is not a pleasant word. It doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't make anybody feel good. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the word. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put another adjective in front of qualified, and we're going to talk about it, and it's going to be easier to talk about. So there are some of you that may have seen this presentation before, so I want you to not say anything. But the ones that have not seen this presentation before, I'd like you to guess what adjective I might want to put in front of qualified. And Jim, why don't you read me those adjectives?
Okay. Fully, very,
Fully qualified, very qualified,
perfectly, just,
perfectly qualified,
well qualified,
well qualified. Yep, yep, all good. How about
adequately, best.
adequately qualified? Best qualified.
Mhm.
How about the one that I would like? What do you think I would like to put in front of qualified?
They have suitably underqualified, highly qualified, completely qualified,
I'm waiting for the one that I would like to put there.
too qualified,
Keep thinking, guys. What would
absolutely
I?
qualified.
There we go. You
Okay.
get a gold star, whoever said that.
Okay. Perfectly
We're going to
spec.
talk about absolutely qualified today. So if I had you live in person, what I would do is I would ask you all to say out loud I'm not overqualified. I'm absolutely qualified. And I would have you do it 3 times in a row. So I know you're at home and we can't hear you, but I'd like you to do it anyway. So we're going to do it together 3 times in a row. I'm not overqualified. I'm absolutely qualified. I'm not overqualified. I'm absolutely qualified. I'm not overqualified. I'm absolutely qualified. Awesome. And then I would wonder, how does that make you feel? And people tend to say, feel empowered when I say that. I feel really good about it. And that's what this is all about. Now, you would feel even better if at the end of that sentence, you could say because, and you would put because blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? We're going to have the becauses at the end of the presentation. If you stick with me, we're going to get there. But at least we know now that you are not overqualified. You are absolutely qualified. So now I want you to tell me, what are the benefits of hiring an absolutely qualified employee? Put that in the chat. What are the benefits of hiring you? Because you just told me 3 times that you're absolutely qualified. What are the benefits of hiring you? All right, so Jim, what do they get?
Already well-trained, experienced, shorter learning curve. Oh, it's going fast here. Uh,
Very smart people here. That's why it's
Have
going
less for the
fast.
money, can get work done efficiently, ramps
Mhm.
up long-term commitment, less
Yep,
training,
yep.
lower cost investment to train, maturity,
Look at how cool you are. Look at how cool you are.
good follow
Now,
through. Yeah.
all of those were right. So what I'd like you to do, I'm going to show you this slide with the ones I came up with, and I'd like you to add the ones that you just gave me to this slide because it's very important that you share these benefits with your next interviewer. Okay? So here we go. Mine, I said you're dependable, loyal, and mature. You have a shorter learning curve, fast ROI. You have a proven track record of success. You have a strong work ethic. You are strong problem solvers. You have a broad range of experience. And you can be a role model for others earlier in their career. So all of these are right, plus all the ones you gave me are right. Make sure you memorize this slide because you really have to get this across during your interview. Okay? You just have to slide these things into your interview conversations or into your cover letter. You can do that too. All right, so today we're going to develop a 3-part strategy. We're going to develop the absolutely qualified resume. We're going to develop the absolutely qualified cover letter, and we're going to talk about the absolutely qualified interview. Before we do that, I'm going to say this. Being overqualified is correlated with age, but it is not caused by age. So a bunch of you mentioned age at the beginning. So it's so correlated because as you get older, you tend to earn more money, right? So when you're 70 years old, you're earning more money than when you're 25. As you get older, you might go back for additional degrees. As you get older, your titles tend to go up. And as you get older, you tend to have more experience. If you're 70 years old, you have more experience than when you're 25. So as you get older, you become more and more prone to being overqualified. That's why it is so highly correlated with age. However, it's not caused by age. So if you are 30, you can still be overqualified for one of those reasons I mentioned at the beginning. But because it's so highly correlated, today we're going to talk about age in addition to being overqualified. So by the time we're done, you will know exactly what to do about both of these topics. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the absolutely qualified resume. First thing is people are always asking me, can I chop things off my resume? So can I have only 10 years of experience on my resume? Can I have only 15? Can I have only 20? What do you guys think is the right number of years to list on your resume? Put that in the chat for me. What are they saying, Jim?
10, 10, 15, last 20, 15, 30 if they're relevant, all of them.
Mhm.
Subjective, relevant
You guys
years,
got it right. So
15.
this was a trick question. This question was like, what is the color of Paul Revere's white horse? Because my question was, what is the right amount of years to list? There is no right amount of years to list because there is no policeman of resumes, right? There's no right number. But around town, I've heard 15 years is the right number. However, that is not the right number. There is no right number. You have to decide what makes the most sense for you. So if somebody at workNet DuPage tells you your resume is too long or your resume is too short, you should listen to them. But the thing you should say is, why do you say that? Ask why. Because then when you get the answer, you'll know whether it's the right thing for you. Okay? Anyway, my resume has all my years of experience on it, every single one. And the reason is because I'm not worried about my age. So I figure if somebody is going to discriminate against me because of my age, then I don't want to even bother having the interview. It's a true story. So I do not care about people knowing how old I am. I just don't. So my resume has every year of experience on it. But if you want to chop things off your resume, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure the first thing on your resume is not vice president, because we will know that you are missing things. But you can put 15, you can put 10, you can put 20, you can put all, doesn't matter, whatever you would like. The next thing though is something I would recommend at the top in your summary. A lot of times people will put, I have 5+ years, I have 20+ years of experience. Well, if the job is for 5 years of experience, then you're going to be seen as overqualified at the top of your resume. Let them count. And if you want to, you can put 5+ years if you have 20 years of experience. Because if you have 20 years of experience, don't you also have 5+ years? Sure. Or you could put 10+, or you could put 15+. But don't put 20 when they're asking for 5. You could say very experienced. Just don't put this big number 20 in the first line of your resume. It's going to go out the window, possibly. Okay, the next thing is graduation dates. Many people are leaving their graduation dates off their resume. The reason I would have it on there is if you graduated recently with a second degree, I would put that graduation date on there. If you want to take your graduation dates off, feel free. If you don't, feel free. It's up to you. Either one is fine with me. I have my graduation date on my resume. It's 1988. Why? Because again, I don't care. If people think I'm too old, let's not bother. That's really what's going on. Okay. So the next thing is that some people have asked me, if I'm applying to the supermarket, should I take off my PhD? If I were applying to the supermarket, I would take off my PhD. This is just me. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just telling you what I would do. If I was applying to work in the supermarket, I would take off my PhD. In similar fashion, if you're applying for an entry-level position in a professional setting and you want to take off your degree, take it off. I'm telling you, I give you permission. Am I telling you that? So, okay, when they do a background check, they will not find your additional degrees. So that will never happen. It just may happen in conversation. You may end up telling them that you have a PhD during your interview, and then they might say, well, why isn't it on your resume? And then you would say, because I was concerned that you might think I was overqualified, but I'm not. I'm absolutely qualified. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I leave this up to you. If you want to take degrees off, feel free. Okay. The next thing is, I do think you should do this. If you used to have a bunch of direct reports, let's say you managed a department and there were 200 people there, I wouldn't put that on your resume if the job you're applying for is having you manage only 5 people. So then what I would do is I would say manage a team or manage a department, but don't put the big number, because that's going to scare people. If you manage 200, they're not going to want to have you manage 5 people. They're just going to worry that you got bored, that you would get bored. Okay, now for those of you that are trying to disguise your age, which means you're taking your graduation dates off, you're shortening your number of years, that's you. If you're doing that, there's a couple other things you're going to want to do. One is that you should not have an AOL email address, because we know that the younger people today do not have AOL email addresses. So you want to have a much more current email address. Not saying you should throw out your AOL, just don't use it on your resume. Then don't have the word objective on the top of your resume, because now we use summaries. Now, you might ask, Abby, when did we go from objectives to summaries? And I would say it was sometime during my tour. All of a sudden, everybody was doing summaries. I think when I left, we were still doing objectives. Who said we should do them? I have no idea, but it just took off. And now we're doing summaries. Don't put an objective, because we're going to know you're an older person. Don't put references available upon request. We don't do that anymore for some reason. I don't know why. And then the last thing is, this might kind of shock some of you. Do not put double spaces after periods, because the colleges are not teaching typing on a typewriter anymore. So that's when we used to use double spaces after periods. So I probably shocked a bunch of you just now. So you got to put that back to single space if you don't want people to think that you're an older person. And if you don't care about people knowing you're an older person, don't worry about anything in this last bullet. This is just for you that are worried about that. Also, there are certain fonts that are seen as old people fonts, and one of them is Times New Roman, which is very unfortunate, because I have a resume in Times New Roman and I'm not planning to change it, and you don't need to either, but people say that's an older person's font. What can I tell you? This is just the way the world is today. Anyway, moving right along, I want to talk to you about a cover letter. Now, some of you are thinking, why, Abby, are you wasting our time talking about a cover letter? Because nobody reads cover letters. I'm here to tell you that is completely false, that people do read cover letters. And the people that read cover letters are HR professionals like me that actually receive cover letters. And when I say that, if I put up an ad, I get, let's say, 100 resumes. Out of that, I will probably get 1 or 2 cover letters. So why wouldn't I read it if I'm only getting 1 or 2? I'm not getting 100. So I highly recommend that you send cover letters, because it helps you differentiate yourself among the people that look just like you on paper. One of the other things you can do is you can overcome the overqualified objection by explaining specifically why you are interested in this position. And we're going to talk about that at the end. But this is very important for overqualified people, or absolutely qualified people, is that you want to overcome this objection. You want to talk about why you're not overqualified, why you're absolutely qualified, and why you're interested. That's what goes in the cover letter. Also, avoid mentioning the number of years in your cover letter. If you go back and look at your old cover letters, I bet it says I have 10 plus years of experience. You want to take that out, just like you wanted to take it out of your resume. If you are considering yourself overqualified, which means you're making more money than the job requires, you should absolutely mention your salary requirements in your cover letter. I know that goes against everything probably anybody's ever taught you, but here's why I'm saying this. So let's say you're a vice president and you've been a vice president for 20 years, and now you're applying for a manager position. I am not going to call you. This is God's honest truth. I am not going to call you. However, if in your cover letter you say, I realize I've been a vice president for 20 years. However, I really miss the day-to-day work of being a financial analyst. So I've been a vice president of finance for 20 years, but I really miss the day-to-day financial analysis work. And that's why I'm applying for this role. And because and I know that the salary range is, let's say, 70 to 90. You put that in there, then I would actually call you. Okay, you're saying, I understand the title's lower. I understand the salary's lower. I'm totally good with that. I really want this job. Then I'm going to call you. That's what you have to do. You have to talk about this stuff. Okay, for those of you that hate writing cover letters, I have a cover letter template for you so that you don't have to struggle with this. It's a great template. You can share it with anybody you know. and you get it by emailing letter@absolutelyabby.com. Letter@absolutelyabby.com is an email address. It's not a website. And when you do that, the letter is going to bounce back and you can use it, share it, whatever you want. It's the cover letter that I have used for years to get jobs for myself. It's nice and easy. It will make your life very pleasant. Okay, that is the cover letter. We are moving on to the interview. So the first thing I want to say is that your foot is in the door when you are sitting in the interview chair, right? Or when you're on the phone, doing a phone screen, or when you're doing a Zoom call, your foot is in the door. So I don't want you to start thinking to yourself, you know, I don't know why they are interviewing me because I have an MBA and this job was asking for a bachelor's degree. And I don't know why they're interviewing me because I'm making more money than the job is paying. And I don't know why they're interviewing me because I have purple hair, excuse me, and everybody else has blue hair at this company. And I don't know why I'm interviewing here because everybody here looks like they're 25 and I'm 70. Don't talk yourself out of success of this interview. The fact that someone is trying to interview you is great. So just believe that they did this on purpose. They could actually fill the position with you. Now, I would say about 5% of the time, people are interviewing people and they will not fill the position with you. There's all kinds of reasons that could happen. I'm not going to go into that, but let's just say 5% of the time you're wasting your time. But 95% of the time, I believe these legitimate positions, the legitimate reasons to want to bring you in for an interview. So just believe that this is true. It's very important that you dress the part for the interview. So I have been doing interviews recently and I've had people show up with wet hair. I've had people show up in sweatsuits. This is all Zoom. Sweatsuits, t-shirts. This is not an appropriate interview attire. So please dress the part. Get dressed up, even if you have to wear a suit and a tie in your own house. It's worth it. Okay. Now, if you're interviewing with a startup company or a tech company, ask the recruiter, if I wear a suit, would I be overdressed? Make sure that you're not overdressing. Like, for example, if you wear a suit to interview with Google, you will probably not get the job because they will see that you are not part of their culture. So definitely dress the part. Here's the other thing. People ask me all the time, if I have gray hair, should I dye it some other color? My answer to you is this. When you walk around with gray hair, do you feel like you are rocking it? Do you feel like you are a superstar with your gray hair? If you do, do not dye it. If you do not, if you're walking around feeling, I hate my gray hair, I'm so old, why do I have this gray hair? That's when you got to dye it because I need you to feel super fantastic when you go into that interview. You need to have tons of confidence. And if you're sitting there in the interview thinking, I have gray hair, they're looking at my gray hair, you're not concentrating on what you should be concentrating on, which is talking about your benefits, why they should hire you. So dye your hair only if you don't like it. Okay, that's the answer to that. Okay, the next thing is you will experience people that are in recruiting that are much younger than me. Much younger than me. So you will, and much younger than you. So you will meet recruiters in their 20s. I have no doubt you're going to meet these people. And they're going to be looking at you thinking that you're grandpa or grandma. Just be okay with it. And we're going to keep going and we're going to talk about these things, but just be okay with the fact that they're very young. The reason they're very young is the recruiting job is the first level of being in HR. And everybody seems to want to get into HR these days, but they can't go straight into HR. They have to start with something. Recruiting is one of the entry-level ways to get into HR. So they'll do recruiting for a few years and then they'll get into HR. That's why they're young. The next thing is it's very, very important when people of our age are talking to people. One of the things is we might come across as very arrogant. And that's because we know what we're talking about, right? We really know what we're talking about. And so it's very important that you don't come across as arrogant during your interview. Now, the best way to find out if you're arrogant, it's very simple. You go to your best friend, you go to your parents, you go to your spouse, and you say, honey, to your spouse, honey, am I arrogant? If they laugh at you, then you probably are. And the truth is that I have a ton of arrogant friends. So I'm not saying being arrogant is very bad. It's just bad during interviews. And so you have to fix this. You have to tone this back. If somebody tells you that you're arrogant, fix it for me, please. Because arrogant people don't get jobs very easily. I have a friend, actually, I have these are two of my closest friends, both men, that are very, very arrogant. In both cases, they've had trouble getting jobs. More importantly, they've had trouble keeping jobs. So this is why I'm telling you, overqualified people can be arrogant because we really know what we're talking about. We know a lot of stuff, but we can't come across that way. So very important. And also, desperate people don't get jobs. Passionate people get jobs. So you want to talk about why you're interested in this job, but not why you need a job. It's not that you need this job, it's that you want this job. Very important language specifics here. Desperate people do not get jobs because what they worry about is that as soon as the better job comes along, you're going to go for it. Okay, that's why desperate people don't get jobs. Not because they don't want to try to help. And then the next thing is for my senior friends in the room, which is many of you, I assume. One of the things that you need to do is you need to talk about your active activities. And this is because one of the things that we worry about with older people is health and energy. And so if you talk to us about your active activities, that's a way of telling us that you're healthy and active, and energetic. So like, let's say, for example, you climbed Mount Everest. You would want to talk about that during the interview. Run a marathon. Do you walk every day for an hour or two?
Excuse me,
Whatever it is that you do.
you froze after Mount Everest. So we missed.
Okay. All right. So I was saying that maybe you haven't climbed Mount Everest, but maybe you have walked. Maybe you do walk. Maybe you walk every day for an hour. Maybe you swim. Maybe whatever you do. Maybe you ride a horse. I don't care what you do. Find a way to tell them about it. Now, you can't walk in the door and say, hi, I'm Abby and I climbed Mount Everest. Can't do that. But what you can do is you can say, when they ask you a question, you could say, oh, I was thinking about that last weekend when I climbed Mount Everest. Or I was thinking about that on my 2-mile walk this morning. Find a way to tell them about that active activity. Very important. We need to make sure that you're healthy and energetic when you're an older person. The next thing is technology. So technology is something that as we get older, we don't feel as comfortable with, and we might even delegate our technology to somebody else. But these guys, these people, these interviewers are going to want to know that you understand technology, current technology, not mainframes, okay? So we need to teach them that we need to tell them that we know technology. So the more you can talk about that, the better. So you want to put that all over your resume. And the other thing, here's an example. I used to tell people when people were going for live interviews to bring their iPad and to put it on the desk of the interviewer. And then the interviewer would know that they had an iPad. And that's current technology, right? So I got this testimonial from Leon. It says, as an over 50 job seeker, I'm 2 for 2 in landing jobs after bringing an iPad with me on job interviews in the past year. I've never even opened the iPad. I just had it with my portfolio during interviews. I'm an IT consultant. So there you go. So just, you want to mention technology. You want to put it on your resume. You want to mention, I'm going to look at my watch and show them that you have an Apple Watch. Find a way to get them to know that you have current technology, you know current technology, and that will be all good for you. Okay, so this is a story that people love about Grandma Jean, right there in the front. And Grandma Jean lived in this building on Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn, if anybody's ever been there. And then Grandma Jean every single day would take the elevator down to the ground floor, and she would cross Ocean Parkway, which is right here. There's 7 lanes of traffic. And then she would walk another 3 or 4 blocks to her senior citizen center, where she would end up feeding the seniors lunch. And she got paid to do this. So she was paid to do this job from age approximately 70 to age 95. 95, this woman did this job. So I love this story because if I were 70 years old sitting in an interview chair, and if I actually looked 70, right now I don't actually look my age, but someday I will look my age. So if somebody's looking at you and you can tell that they're giving you the once over and they're like, oh my God, that person's so old. If you feel that, you have to talk about this, because one of the things they're going to worry about is retiring, because retiring equals quitting. Like from that first slide, retiring equals quitting. Quitting is bad. So we have to tell them that we're not planning on retiring anytime soon. So the thing is, if you happen to have a Grandma Jean that's still working or has worked, mention it. So if I were in a chair, I'm 70 years old, I have gray hair at some point, and I say to them, you might notice that I'm not 25 years old, but I do want you to know my Grandma Jean worked until she was 95. So I'm probably going to be working here for a long time. Just say that. Just put it right out there, because I am telling you, if you don't mention that, they're thinking it. They're absolutely thinking it. If you have gray hair or white hair, they're thinking it. They're thinking, when is this person going to retire? And that's it. Okay. Now, here's a story for you. I was interviewing a director of recruiting for one of the companies that I worked for. And I distinctly remember this because I've never had it happen before or since. I said to him, what are you planning to do in the next 5 years? Or something like that. In 5 years, something like that. His answer was, I plan on retiring in the Hamptons in 5 years. Guess who didn't get a second interview? Okay. I've only had somebody tell me that one time. So I need you guys to tell people that you're not planning on retiring anytime soon. Okay. And if you don't have a Grandma Jean, you can borrow mine. She would be very happy to share. Okay, so here's something that's going to make you think I'm crazy. Being called overqualified is actually a blessing in disguise. You want to know why it's a blessing? It's because you actually know why they're not going to hire you. Remember at the beginning, I told you the reason I became absolutely Abby is because I couldn't tell you why we weren't hiring you. Now somebody's telling you, I can't move you forward because you're overqualified. I can't hire you because you're overqualified. That is a huge blessing, because now you get to say, well, I'm not overqualified. I'm absolutely qualified. And we're going to talk about that now. But let's say they don't tell you that you're overqualified. You're sitting in the interview chair. You're thinking, my title's too high, my salary is too high, my experience level is too high, my degree is too high. Any of those 4 things, if that's the case, you got to talk about this before you walk out of the door. You have to talk about it, because otherwise you're going to get the rejection letter in the mail and you're not going to know what happened. So now you're going to talk about this and you're going to say, you could see that I've worked at a higher level before, but this position is exactly what I'm looking for. And here's why. This is the elephant in the room. And by the way, it took a lot of work to get that elephant in the room for you. But here's what I'm saying. You got to say this. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly these words. These are my words. You can say them in whatever words you want. You can say them at the end when someone says, do you have any questions? If this topic of overqualified has not come up, you have to bring it up. You have to say, yes, I don't have a question, but I just want to mention to you before I leave that you might notice that I've worked at a higher level before, but this position is exactly what I'm looking for. And here's why. And now I'm going to give you a bunch of here's whys. We're going to talk about a bunch. When you get the slides, you're going to get more. Here's why, I believe. But here's a couple that we're going to talk about now. Now, what you're going to do here is you're going to write out your here's why before the interview. If you know that you're overqualified, you're going to write it out. You're going to memorize it because you can't read it, except if you're on Zoom, you could read it, but just memorize it. Memorize your here's why. Make sure you've got it, you've said it over and over and over till it feels really good, and then say it. Okay, and I'll give you a couple right now. So this is the first one. I was proud to be a nurse manager, but I really miss working with patients as my main function. I've had the big salary and the big title, but now I just want to make a difference. Just imagine a nurse who does a really great job and they get promoted to be a nurse manager. And then they realize that they don't want to do that anymore. They really would just want to be a nurse. Wouldn't you want to hire them again if they were a great nurse? Of course you would. So that's what this person is asking for. They're saying, I used to be a nurse manager. I don't want to deal with the bureaucracy, the scheduling. I just want to be a nurse. And if they said that to me, I'd hire them in a minute. I would. Now, this is conveniently the same thing that goes on with me in my life because I've been a senior director before in my life, in my career, and I have no desire to do that anymore. I really love doing recruiting. I'm a contract recruiter right now. That's many levels down from the senior director title that I once had. But I know this is where I want to be in life. This is why I want to do this because I have a lot of freedom as a contract recruiter as opposed to a senior director of recruiting. This would be, I wouldn't be able to be doing presentations like this for you if I was a senior director of recruiting. I'd be busy managing my team. Don't want to do that. This definitely applies to me. The next thing is money. So if you used to earn $200,000, you're going to have to tell somebody why on earth you would be okay with accepting $70,000 to $90,000 if you want to be a financial analyst. You have to tell them why you don't need the money. And there's all kinds of reasons why people don't need money. And I'm going to tell you some of them. So write these down. 1, you sold your house. You now live in an apartment. 2, your kids are done with college, so you're not paying for college anymore. 3, you won the lottery. 4, your spouse is the main breadwinner, so you really don't need the big salary. Let's see. 5, you did well in the stock market. You have a great amount of savings. You don't need all this extra cash. Something, if you know that money is the issue, you have to talk about it before you leave that interview room. And then the last thing is, let's say you really want to change industries or professions. You're going to have to take a lower title or a salary, whatever. You have to talk about why you really want to work in the industry. My example for this is the entertainment industry. I always loved the entertainment industry, and I never got the opportunity to work in it until last summer or the summer before, where I got an opportunity to work for CBS, the TV station. And I was delirious because I love TV. So I went on the interview and the hiring manager told me what the rate was for the contract. And I was laughing at him in the back of my head because it was way lower than the rate that I had been earning in the pharmaceutical industry. However, I was dying to get into the entertainment industry. I wanted to try it. I wanted to just have some fun with it. So I looked him straight in the eye and I said, Rich, I have been wanting to work in the TV industry for my entire career. I would be very honored if you would be willing to give me a chance, and I would love to work for you. And I got the job, and I did it for 5 months until they were bought by Viacom. But I'm just telling you, I had to take a lower salary. I had not a lower title, but a lower salary. But I proved to him that I really wanted the job, and that's why he gave it to me. You can do this. Sometimes someone will tell you that you're overqualified. And if that happens, you could say, I'm not overqualified. I'm absolutely qualified because whatever you memorized, you can do that. However, some of you may have a little bit of a Brooklyn personality like I do. I grew up in Brooklyn. And in that case, you might want to say something like this. If you were having open heart surgery, would you prefer a qualified surgeon or an overqualified one? Okay, I want you to think about that before I go to the next one. Seriously think about, if I told you you had to have open heart surgery tomorrow, would you go looking for a qualified surgeon or an overqualified one? I bet you'd go looking for the overqualified one. How about this? If you were a passenger on a plane, would you prefer a qualified pilot or an overqualified one like Captain Sully? I'll bet that when you get on a plane, if you look into the cockpit, you feel much more comfortable seeing somebody with white hair than not. I certainly do. I want the most overqualified person flying my plane. You could also say this, when you go to the beauty parlor, would you prefer a qualified hairstylist or an overqualified one? Same idea. And then if you were a football player, would you prefer a qualified coach or an overqualified coach? And that one, I would just take or a baseball player, figure out what their team might be, where they live, and see if you could throw that in there. So like if you were the Chicago Bears, that's what I'm saying. Just mention that in that sentence. So some of you are thinking, this stuff would never work. This is very sarcastic. This is just too much in your face. Well, guess what? It works. And I've had testimonials written to me saying that it works. And you just have to be able to be silent after you say one of these lines, because what's going to happen is they're going to be spinning. And they're going to be like, did she really say that? But they're going to be spinning and spinning and thinking. And all of a sudden, they're going to come back and they're going to say, you're totally right. And then they're going to invite you in for the interview or whatever the next step is. So here's a testimonial from Donna. When I interviewed for a job, the hiring manager told me I was overqualified for the position. I said, well, why settle for Chevy when you can have a Mercedes-Benz? I need very little training and I can hit the ground running. That was on Friday. By Monday morning, my recruiter told me he decided to drive the Mercedes-Benz. True story. And then this one, Pam, I went into a recent interview and noticed the hiring manager's office was covered with pictures of his Air Force tour of duty. At the end of the interview, he told me I was overqualified. I held my cool and said, when you're a passenger on a plane, do you prefer a qualified pilot or an overqualified one? I start on Monday. Yippee! So while I was on tour, I was in Mountain View, California, and I met this man, John Delaney. And John Delaney says, overqualified is a judgment a manager makes assuming everything is going to go according to plan with no surprises. The Captain Sullys are trained for surprises. He comes up after my presentation and says this brilliant thing. And I said, John, this is amazing. Can you please say that again so I can write it down? So he's like, I don't remember what I said. So I had like a whole group of people helping him remembering what he just said. And then I said, John, this is brilliant. Can I take you on my tour? And he said, no, but you can take my picture. And that's what happened. So the girl who used to live in an RV said this. It's impossible to be overqualified unless you believe you are overqualified. Your success with overcoming objections that you are overqualified absolutely starts by changing your mindset. And if you all agree with that, I now pronounce you absolutely qualified. Now, I'm going to take a bunch of questions. However, before I do that, I need to tell you about something very exciting that you could all be very excited about. So what happened last summer is I was out of work, just like many of you are now. I was out of work because of COVID for about 4 months. It was a scary time. So when I say that I know how you feel, I 100% know how you feel. It stinks. However, what I did last summer is I joined a headhunter network because I needed to generate some income for myself. And by being part of this network, if I help them fill positions, I get a piece of their fee. That's really what is going on. So I'm part of this network. There are 1,173 headhunters in my network. Today, there are 3,438 jobs available. Last week, there were 3,600. But what's happening is the jobs are going up and down. The week before that, there were 3,800. So it goes up, it goes down. The jobs get filled, we get more. There are 161 jobs available in Illinois this morning. I just checked. 216 in Ohio, 98 in Michigan, 92 in Indiana, 62 in Iowa, 199 in Wisconsin, and 296 remote jobs, you guys. 296 jobs say that you can do them from your house. Okay, these jobs are every single state. I think there's at least one job in every single state. Every single profession is probably on here, every single level. So there's a job up there I know that's about $300,000, and there's also jobs up there for $40,000 or $30,000. So all levels, all professions, all locations. Does this sound exciting to all of you? I hope so. And guess what? I'm going to give you your special code to get into my site. Okay? This is it. So you go to absolutelyabby.com/DuPage. And I'm told that you can actually do small letters on the D and the P. So absolutelyabby.com/DuPage. When you go to my site, you're going to sign up to see the jobs. That's what's going to happen. When you sign up to see the jobs, there's 4 things that are going to bounce back to you. 1 is my cover letter template, which I already told you about earlier. 2 is I have a webinar on there called Winning the Hearts and Minds of Recruiters that you should definitely listen to. The 3rd one is I have a 26-page job search resource guide for you. And I wrote it during COVID, so it's very relevant. And then the last thing is I used to have calls where I was doing Q&A, and I gave you 3 of them, so you can listen to them. So all of these materials should really help you with your job search. And once you sign up on the site, these things are going to bounce back. The other thing that's interesting is if you land a job from my site with one of the recruiters on my site, I'm actually going to give you a sign-on bonus of, I think it's $250. You'll see that on the site as well. So I'm going to pay you to get a job. How cool is that? It's cool. So what happens is once you apply for a job on the site, your resume is going to go to the recruiter, not to me. It's going to go to that other recruiter, and that other recruiter is going to call you if they're interested. So I will not be involved with it at all, except if I see that you applied and I think that you are a solid candidate, I would obviously contact that recruiter and say, hey, did you see one of my candidates applied for your job? That's how I'm going to help you, because sometimes resumes get lost. Your resume will not get lost if I know that you did that. And I know that you did that because I get an email that you did that. So I hope that that news makes you excited, because it's possible that I have a job that you don't know about. These jobs are not posted on the regular job boards. These are basically the hidden job market that you always ask about. They're posted by headhunters. So unless you went to 1,173 websites, you wouldn't see all of these jobs. So that's why you got to go. You got to check them out. And you should also set up alerts to make sure that you know of new ones that come up, because we're getting about 100 new ones a week. 100 new ones come, then we fill 100, then we get 100 new, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So that is my news. And now I think we should take some questions.
Yes, Abby. I'm just going to scroll through here and look for some.
Okay.
While I'm scrolling, what I want to talk about is at workNet DuPage. If you go to who's hiring page, as of yesterday, we had 15 pages of different jobs. Again, all levels.
Great.
And people don't realize that the employers don't have to pay to put their jobs with us. And we're getting jobs all the time. We update. It's similar to you. Sometimes we get 25 jobs a day. So
Oh, yeah. Same here.
it's amazing. So
there's tons of jobs out there, you guys.
yeah.
Tons of jobs. You guys can land. I'm sure you can.
This was earlier in the presentation when you were talking about mentioning years. And the question is, should you list the years based on what the job description is looking for?
It's up to you. I can't tell you that answer because I put all my years of experience on my resume. So I can't tell you. Actually, you know what? I can tell you this. This past summer, not this past summer, in March, I was thinking I needed an extra contract for myself I do pharmaceutical recruiting. So I was thinking maybe I should get myself an extra contract. So I had one, but it was not full-time. And I actually applied for a job and I did shrink my number of years of experience. So what I have 15 years of pharmaceutical recruiting experience, and then I have another 11 of other industry experience. So I dropped all the other experience and I gave them a resume with 15 years of experience. And that resume got me that job. So that was the one time that I shrunk my resume, but most of the time people get my full resume. So it's totally up to you how you want to do it. You should work with your with workNet for this.
Okay, the next one is, what about an AA degree when you have a bachelor's? Should you list the associate's degree?
Yeah, I would. I don't see why not. You should be proud of it. You did it. You finished it. I would do it. Sure.
Yeah. This comment was, I'd like to omit the year I graduated, but in the electronic applications, they ask for it
I
and it's
know.
not optional.
And they really shouldn't be doing that, because when they do that, they know your age, and then you could sue them if you don't get the job for discrimination. So companies that ask for your age on your application, not too smart. A lot of times they're asking for your age in the background check part of their application. So they might even say that. They might say this part is for our background check. And then it's less likely that they would discriminate based on a background check. It's not least, no, it's that they're trying to say, we're not going to look at this. We're only going to look at it if we put you through a background check. But basically they're going to know your age if you fill out an application. So therefore, maybe try not to have to fill out an application by going through LinkedIn and getting recommended to the company. And maybe you can avoid the application that way.
Which brings us to the next two questions, which kind of line up here.
Yep.
I heard the cutoff should be the year 2000 on LinkedIn for recruiter search reasons. Is this a myth?
I have no idea what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Maybe you
I
can
guess if
clarify
you're
that.
LinkedIn, if you have something from 1985 to 19,
Recruiters are not doing that.
okay. All righty.
That's a myth. Mm-mm.
All righty.
No, I can't say no recruiters, okay?
Yeah.
I can't say nobody's discriminating. I could tell you for sure there are people that are discriminating. I'm going to say it's 5%, maybe 10%. The rest of us are not. And by the way, sometimes we do it because it's all times. I've had hiring managers tell me I want to hire a female. And I say, I can't help you with that. I'm not allowed to only give you female candidates. I've had hiring managers tell me I want somebody younger. And I tell them I can't do that. In fact, I've said to people, I can't do that, number one. And number two, what would be the problem with somebody who's overqualified wanting to take the lower level salary? And then they'll say, okay, but I'm not going to discriminate even if they tell me to do it. So a lot of these recruiters that aren't doing that is because hiring managers are telling them to do that. But I would say it's about 10%.
Okay, the next one is tied to the applicant tracking systems, ATS. How do you address age discrimination on ATS? What are your strategies for the system?
So age discrimination on an application, that's the same thing as, I think we kind of answered that. Do you, Jim? I think we got that.
Yeah. Again, I think it's.
You can't fix age discrimination. You can't fix it. That's not something you have control over. All you have control over is yourself. So I can tell you right now, many people that I know are over 70 and have gotten jobs, over 60 and have gotten jobs, many people. So it's all in your head, okay? Please just keep going forward, keep applying, and somebody is going to hire you. They are. My grandmother, my God, 95. You can do this, you guys. You just have to keep going. Keep going.
My
Many
dad had
jobs out
4
there.
part-time jobs until he was 85. And one of them was working at a historical mill carrying up corn from, I don't know, 25-pound sacks of corn up from the basement. I'm like, I don't know how he does it. So
Mhm.
Uh, this one, I don't know if we can even address it, but I'll just read it. Last year, filing for Will County employment, I was denied unemployment because of my age. The reason was because of everyone applying. I don't know.
I
Had to
can't
apply.
answer that. That's
No,
not
I
my
can't.
expertise, not my area of expertise.
No, not mine either. How should you handle a question that asks you if you have any concerns about working with young people?
I would say I love young people. I have many young people in my family. I have friends that are young people. I'd love to work with young people. Whether that's true or not, that's the answer.
Yeah. And if I could just add something too, having teenagers and even older, you know, my older son is in this crazy band
Mhm,
that has some industrial music. But when I have a younger person in my workshop
mhm,
that plays guitar, I say, "Oh, do you like Slipknot?" My son's in and just a way to bring up some commonality, I guess, rapport. And
mhm,
then the other thing is, I talk about. I used to have a young person on my staff as a trainer who was a gamer, and
mm,
he taught me how to, get into what was it, Second Life, to look for a
mhm.
real job in the real world. But it was alternate. It was really weird, but
Yeah,
you learn, and it goes both ways. Mentoring
of
goes both
course,
ways.
of course. Yeah. I mean, and so you have to get comfortable with young people, and that's a great thing to talk about during an interview, even if they don't ask, because they might be thinking it. Remember, they might
Mm.
be thinking you're too old. They might be thinking you're going to retire. They might be thinking you don't know technology. They might be thinking you're not going to be healthy. Got to overcome all this during the interview if you want to make this work. It's going to be a project, you guys, but this is what you have in front of you. But you can do this. I know you can do this.
A couple of comments. My dad is still working at 88. That's from Stacy.
Great.
Uh,
Wonderful. Great.
okay,
Great.
so this is an interesting one. What are your resume, ATS, interview strategies for returning to the workforce after being a caregiver?
Um, this is something you definitely want to work with workNet on specifically, but I would say I would put that you were a caregiver in the place where you would put your job, because being a caregiver is possibly even the hardest job you've ever had, just like being a parent is the hardest job you've ever had and not gotten paid for. And you can actually you can look up funny descriptions for parents, for being a parent on the web. And you'll find people that have written very funny things about it, like things like limousine driver, scheduling coordinator. Like they put funny things, and you can put funny things on your resume as a caretaker, and people will laugh and probably call you.
Yeah. I had a lady who was a caretaker for both her parents for 10 years.
Hmm.
One died when they lived out in Arizona. She had to transport the body back to
Hmm.
Chicago.
Hmm.
And then the other parent died here in Chicago. So
Hmm.
I really sat down with her to look at what are the skills you had. You had to do the scheduling, the transportation.
Exactly.
And that's what you do is you break down those skills in my,
That's it.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was saying that's exactly what I'm talking about. But if you want to be funny, just look for a funny description of them, or come up with your own funny description. It might make your resume stand out. But there's nothing wrong with being a caretaker. There's nothing wrong with being a parent. Nothing at all, especially because of COVID, especially. So, and there's nothing wrong with being unemployed nowadays, guys, because a lot of people were affected by COVID. So nothing wrong. You're just like everybody else. It's totally okay.
Here's another one. What if their concerns are medical based, having to do a pre-employment physical? I guess sometimes it's like truck drivers or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that.
Yeah, I'm not either. I just know that if I did a minor stint in recruiting, and whenever we told people they had to do a drug test and they didn't show for an interview or didn't show with us, we knew that
Mhm.
it wasn't going to be a good thing. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay. Uh, okay. I think that's it, Abby.
Good, because I gotta go back to work.
Well, good, because I'm going to wrap things up here. So
All
thank
right.
you very much. And I
You're
appreciate.
welcome. And thanks again for having me. And I wish you all lots of success. And I'll see you on the other side. I hope I can get you all a job on my website. That would be fantastic.
Okay. Great, Abby. Okay. I'm going to wrap up here with uh, some things.
All right. Have a good day.
Okay. Thanks, Abby. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So let's see. Abby, okay. So I'm going to talk about work. As I mentioned earlier, Tuesdays, we have a layoff from launch. We are funded by Congress. So we'll help you with certification training, pay for that. But it's helpful when you let us know, and actually that's part of the grant, is let us know when you get a job, because we do have to let Congress know the job, the salary, things like that, because that's how they keep these programs funded. Last year, we sent the year in review to Senator Duckworth, and it just happened to be when they were looking over WIOA programs, the grant, and she said, this is great for us to be able to make the case. The other thing is, we're doing this for the public today. The funding comes from people who've gotten jobs, whether it's increased or decreased, so that we're able to offer this plus other workshops coming up, as well as training, is based on the number of people that have gotten jobs. What I also find is your story will encourage others. You saw how Abby used stories. I like to use them as well, people's stories, because they were in the trenches. And it also allows us to serve more people. So let's go on here. Okay, Jennifer Javon, if you could put this in the thing. Today's code word for your counselors, those of you who are in the grant and working with a counselor, it's QUAL 1021, QUAL 1021. Okay, and that'll go in the. So let's talk about what's coming up for their next career conversations. October 29th, every Halloween, I put together a Halloween job search story. This is my 21st annual Halloween job search workshop. And it's going to be my last one because I'm getting ready to retire. So I'm going to talk about the quest through the job search wasteland. I like to use all my background, reading and stuff. And the story we're going to follow is King Arthur's knights roam the countryside in quest for the Grail. And that's what you're doing right now. You're on the quest for the right position. So I would just say we're going to talk about being one of those questing knights, navigating through the trials and lessons of the wasteland to find your next position. I've sat where you sat 7 times in 5 years. So, and I've learned a lot of things as well. November 19th, Cobra and Healthcare Options, Robert Slayton. Every November, I have him present about the current state of health insurance and alternatives. What is Cobra? What are the different options out there? November is open enrollment, so that will help you or any questions you may have if you're on your spouse's plan. You can just go to worknetdupage.org/webinars and sign up. Okay, that's coming up. And I think our Christmas one might be up as well. The one I do for holidays, why I believe in Santa. Okay, I think that's it. Oops. Okay, yes, the code is in there. It's QUAL 1021. Let me just go back to that for all of you. That's going to be it for me. And I look forward to seeing all of you October 29th for the Halloween. So anyway, thank you again and for participating today. I wish you the best and have a great weekend. Okay.